introduce Anthony Burgess. He is the noted author and screenwriter and musician. His newest book is called On Mozart, and it's a home homage to the composer on the bicentennial of his death. And as I said, it's a pleasure to have him here. Most people, I don't know that they know about you as a composer and know about your musical talent.
It's not a great talent, but I was a musician until I became a writer. I became a writer, pretty well past the age when Mozart died. But
which was what, 32?
No, but I died. No, sorry.
You didn't die.
I died.
Well, but they actually thought you were going to die one time.
Indeed, I died as a composer and gave birth to myself as a writer when I was about 37.
Yeah. So he died when he was 32.
36.
36.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes,
what,
yes.
In writing this, why? Did you key this in on the fact that with this bicentennial, or was it just?
Well, you know, occasionally writers are asked to write books.
Yeah,
and
right.
I was asked to write this, and the book itself is an expression of total bewilderment. I mean, how the hell do we write about music for the average reader? If you're a musicologist, you'll analyze the works, you'll give musical illustrations and so on. But to write to the ordinary man and woman about this composer, this great composer, what do you really say? Well, the book is a solid piece of...
Well, let me give you one idea. Yes. What you do is you have a celestial conversation among all the greats of music, and they talk about Mozart, you know?
True.
What about that as an idea?
It's an idea. It's been done before, of course. I mean, you know,
here.
The idea's an old one, but it was one.
But it worked.
It was one way of beginning. It was one way of making a start. And various things came in from outside during the process of writing this book. I was asked by the city of Salzburg itself to write an opera in which Mozart should be the leading character, so I did at least write the libretto. But what we get at the end is a kind of Gilbert and Sullivan gallimaufry, which is not all that serious. In other words, you can't take the outside of a composer all that serious. You've got to get the inside. And when you get inside, it's pure music.
Well, when you got inside, did you find anything that surprised you that you didn't know about that was...
Well, I found that, you know, most of the popular myths about Mozart are really a disgrace. You know, the notion that
he was childlike,
he was a giggler, he was scatological, and I think the play and the film Amadeus was a bit of a travesty. I mean, he never even used the name Amadeus. Consider that, you know, the name itself is an illiterate name. It's a version of Theophilus, God lover, Amadeus. Doesn't work. He called himself Amadei occasionally, but he strikes me as being, you know, a thorough gentleman, a typical citizen of the age, a believer in God, a good Freemason, and a damn hard worker.
Compare him to Shakespeare as a genius.
I don't think you can do it. This is always a problem, finding a parallel in another art. I would say that Shakespeare, of course, having lived a little longer, Shakespeare died at 52, which was an advantage. He knew more about life. But I end up with the only parallel I can find, which is that with Dante Alighieri, who has this vision of the next world, which is so elegant, so beautifully put together. And this, of course, is an aspect of Mozart, the total elegance, the total inability to put a foot wrong. We don't like this, as a rule. We expect our great geniuses to be a little clumsy occasionally.
How do we explain great geniuses?
I don't think you can. I think that the only way of looking at a man like Mozart is to examine his contemporaries. I mean, there were a lot of musicians working at that time. Thousands of operas were being produced, none of which have survived. And Mozart seemed to manage to do things rather better than the others.
But it was not as celebrated then as it is now. I mean,
I don't think his
genius was not as recognized.
What we regard as his genius, you know, this individual voice, of course, was not greatly liked in his day. What seems to us to be incredible elegance and incredible skill, to them looked like a certain carelessness.
Well, speaking of the film and the play, I mean, there's also a myth that he was poisoned too.
I don't think that's true at all. He was a sick boy and he was a sick man. I mean, he had every known disease except syphilis, as well as I could make out. And his death was a combination of various things. He was unlucky, but we have to remember that was an age in which the great things were done by young people. Shelley died at 29, Byron 35, Keats 26. You know, so we go on. At the beginning of the century, at the end of the previous century, the work was being done by the young, not by the old.
You have continued to be prolific. I mean,
yes.
You once set a goal to write. At one time, I mean, tell the story about the doctor coming to you when you were about 41.
Well, I was working in the area you've already been discussing. I was working in Southeast Asia, working in Borneo, and I think total frustration came over me, which resulted in symptoms which were interpreted as symptoms of a possible tumour on the brain. I was sent home. They looked for the tumour and then decided that they'd better give me a year to live. So this is a nice idea in a film with, you know, Betty Davis.
Yeah, that's right. It would be.
You know, plenty of money.
Exactly, exactly.
I had a
you could have written a screenplay.
Well, I had a prospective widow, you see. This is the problem. So one had to do something to leave money for her.
Right.
So I got down to writing pretty solidly, you know, professionally, and produced my, my...
But didn't you make a commitment to write 10 books in a year?
I wrote 6 books in that
You made a
year.
commitment to write 10.
I had to. Well,
You said, I'm going to write 10.
It was a question of being highly professional in the sense of being, how should I put it, quantitative as well as qualitative. Say, I will write 2,000 words a day.
Yeah.
If you add that up, you see,
You still do that, 2,000 words a day?
Not 2,000 words, 1,000 words
Yeah,
an
yeah.
hour. I think if you stop writing, you forget how to write. It's like riding a bicycle. You've got to keep going all the time.
Do you really? If you don't write for a while, if you would stop for a year.
I think writing is one of the hardest things in the world. To write well is difficult, and this is one of the reasons why one tries to live for a long time. I mean, I'm getting on. I'm 75 very nearly, but I still haven't mastered the craft. And this, of course, brings us back to Mozart. He had mastered the craft.
But are you getting better?
I don't know. I noticed with a certain disquiet that you put on the screen there, you know, Anthony Burgess, author of A Clockwork Orange, which goes back to...
Yeah, but that's what you're best known for.
Unfortunate. And why? Not because it's particularly well written.
Because Stanley Kubrick.
Because it's about, it's about violence and a very considerable film.
Yeah, but Gore Vidal once called you the most interesting English writer of the last half-century.
That was kind of him. Well, Gore is a good writer.
And a man of impeccable judgment.
Yes, indeed. I've said nice things about him. I mean, tit for tat. He said that, I think. It's very kind of him, but yes.
But let me read the rest of the paragraph that I found that quote in. The suspicion remains that although he possesses all the ingredients of greatness, Burgess has somehow made a flea circus of himself.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
That's very Gorish, very Vidalian, if I may so. I don't know what it means.
Now that wasn't from Gore, that was from someone else.
Yes.
Actually, a New York writer named James Walcott.
Indeed, indeed. No, I think the point is that...
But there's this element, let me just interrupt you, that you got this massive talent, and some are not sure that you have given us the genius that we might have expected.
I don't know what greatness is. I think greatness seems to be something that belongs to the past. We're hearing greatness attached to so many people nowadays. For example, Stephen Hawking, you know, who has written this best-selling book about time and its history. The
history of what? What's it called?
Well, it's called A Brief History of Time, which everybody buys, but
nobody reads.
I read it 3 times without understanding it. I think the term genius, greatness, is better attached these days to scientists than to mere artists.
Do you really?
We seem to regard greatness as something
because you can measure what a scientist does?
We have to wait a long time to discover the greatness of an artist.
Yeah.
We had to wait a long time to discover Wagner's greatness, Beethoven's, and
because the test of time...
And indeed Mozart's.
Yeah.
They're always a bit ahead of their time. They're not quite using the language of their own day. They're using a new language. They're preparing the language of tomorrow. Perhaps I'm doing that in a way.
What book, you hear this kind of question often, but in the context of 75, which one are you the most proud?
Well, the book I'm probably most proud of is the one that went most quickly out of print. In other words, the one people didn't understand. I wrote a book called MF. I won't tell you what the initials stand for. Of course, it can stand for many things. One of them is totally obscene. This was written with so much difficulty. It was an attempt to make modern fiction out of the new theory of structuralism. The people who had not yet heard of structuralism discounted the book, threw it away, and didn't like it. But I think when an author puts a lot of work into a book, he tends to like it. When a book comes freely, easily, like A Clockwork Orange, it's not too sure about it.
Yeah, so the harder, other people have expressed this to me, that the harder the work is, that by definition they think the better it is.
Yes, it's probably wrong, but you feel...
Yeah, I do too. I think it's probably wrong.
You want a reward, you see. You want a reward for the hard work you put into it. But when I do spend a lot of time on a book, the critics usually say, you know, Burgess's rag bag of self-indulgence.
Yeah, they do say that.
Yeah, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, what do you think of them when they say that?
Well, I'm a critic myself. I've always maintained the critic's posture.
Yeah. The story is that you read these things with a fine-tooth comb.
No, I think we can all be hurt. I think we all want appreciation to some extent, and writing is a very lonely job. One is cut off from the world. One has to be to some extent. And I've been in the United States for the last week or so, assisting in Washington at the opening of the Mozart festivities. I've met 1 or 2 people who read my books. This gives me more pleasure than I can well say.
Yeah.
You suddenly realize there are people out there who are reading
books.
Who are reading books.
Yeah. But see, I think there are more people reading books. I don't think they're less. I mean, the impact is that the notion is television has been a terrible...
In some ways, because television is made out of books.
Yeah.
Just before I came away, the BBC was producing a, I don't know what you can call it, a serial based on the first novel of all, the first English novel, which of course is Samuel Richardson's Clarissa Harlowe, the first body stripper. There had to be a book before the television series could be made. You can't make a television series out of air. It's made out of words, ultimately. But there it is. I have to live a little longer in order to master the craft.
Yeah, well,
but I envy Mozart because he mastered the craft so early.
Yeah. Who do you read? Let me stay with read first.
I read a lot of Americans. I read my American contemporaries. I'm not saying I read Gore because Gore said nice things about me. I read Mail. I read.
What do you think of Mailer's latest book?
Well, I praised it in the Washington Post because I have to praise this tremendous American industry, which seems to have lost in Europe. We cannot write blockbusters. We cannot produce these huge structures. And although there's a lot of dead weight or dead wood in Mailer's work, at least the energy is there. I think we're losing the energy in Europe. The French have produced, I don't know what it is. Possibly it's something to do with economic circumstances.
But there's the notion that there's more energy in Europe today, that there is a resurgence, that Europe once again, because the barriers are coming down and the East and West separation is down. And
well, it's a problem for an Anglophone like me because naturally I feel closer to America than I do to Europe.
Yes.
It's a question of language, it's a question of law, it's a question of culture and traditions. And of course, you can regard America as a kind of glorified Europe, a genuinely glorified, a transmogrified, a glorified Europe. When I come back to the United States, I feel I'm coming home. I'm not saying this because I'm here. It's perfectly true. I'm back among my own people, my own culture, and I'm hearing my own language.
Have you desperately wanted to do something that you haven't done?
Yes, not in the field of literature, but in the field of music. I've been trying for a long time to conceive an opera based on the career of Sigmund Freud. And I've even written a good deal of the libretto. Yeah. But there's a great problem. Sigmund Freud lost his voice, lost his voice almost totally with this cancer of the jaw. And I can't imagine any great baritone wanting to take on the role and losing his voice at the end of the first act.
No, I can't either.
But here we have, I think, a material for a great modern opera because the orchestra can represent the unconscious
Now, are you
mind.
constantly working on it? Is it
in my head? It's always there. Yes.
Yeah.
Always there. Probably I shall end up by writing an opera in which I give the task of writing opera to some character I invent.
I recommend this and invite you back. It is always a delight to see you. This is the first time you and I have done this, and
Indeed.
I am definitely pleased to have you here and hope
it's very pleasant to be here. Thank you. May I just say one final thing? The title
on Mozart.
On Mozart. It's a little bland. The title in Britain is Mozart and the Wolfgang.
I like that better.
Well, I like it better because it's true. We are a gang of wolves eating his body, consuming his flesh.
Because of this 2000, this bicentennial.
But America.
But there you are participating in it.
Indeed, I am. And yes, I'm one of the Wolfgangers. Yes, but
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Anthony Burgess.
Great pleasure.
My thanks to him and to all of our guests tonight.